In this video, we will be talking about freedom and responsibility, presented by Group 5 of Grade 11 Campus.
For the first part is human action versus acts of man. So for human actions, these are acts or actions done consciously and freely by man, free and voluntary, and done with knowledge and consent, under our control, and done with full knowledge and of his own will. Now, on the other hand, we have acts of man, which is naturally exhibited by man, natural involuntary actions, acts of person without the proper use of reason. And acts may become human acts when they are performed with malice or when they are directed by will. So, the difference between these two are mainly the intentions and if you are doing it on your own free will or not. Human actions, you are doing it with an intention and with knowledge that you are going to do something with it. While acts of man, you are subconsciously doing this with the purpose of either benefiting yourself or benefiting others that naturally come to you.
Okay, so now we will proceed on Aristotle's distinction of voluntary actions and involuntary actions. For voluntary actions, these are acts originating from the individual performing the act using knowledge about the situations of the certain act. These are actions done by a person knowingly and out of their own choice or specific reason. For the classifications of voluntary actions, it is A. Voluntary. These actions are performed from own will and own reason. Its examples include eating, talking, and even walking. For the second classification, it is related to compulsion. It is considered as a mix of voluntary actions and involuntary actions. It is more voluntary if the desire and choice has been performed, and involuntary if it has considered your preferences or alternatives. It is partly voluntary and partly involuntary. It usually occurs when a person is forced into a hard choice. An example of this is you are asked to perform a crime and your options are A. Either you do it and your family survives, or B. You don't do it but they will be murdered. Okay, so now let us proceed on involuntary actions. These are actions done under A. Force or coercion, where the doer has no control over the situation, or B. Ignorance, where the doer does not know the outcome and later regrets it. The classifications of involuntary actions include A. Under compulsion, a circumstances which are beyond the control of the agent and contributes none to the action. An example of this include a person was kidnapped, hence impossible to resist. For the second classification, it is through ignorance of particular circumstances. It happens when the actions are done without knowing the circumstances or consequences. An example of this includes stealing without knowing the law or accidentally shooting someone.
Now let's move on to human freedom and obligation. According to John Mothershed, freedom and obligation are essential conditions for morality. Freedom exists when a person chooses a course of action. The individual must take responsibility for the consequences of their actions. This freedom is grounded in one's moral and rational ability to discern right from wrong. In metaethical thought, obligation arises from freedom. You are only obliged to act morally if you are free to make choices. Freedom in morality means being able to decide for yourself what is right or wrong in life situation. The Filipino saying, buntot mo, hila mo, reflects this idea. You are responsible for your own action and must accept their consequences. Therefore, an act cannot be considered fully moral if a person's freedom or rationality is compromised. This compromise can occur when external factors or environment strongly influence or distort one's judgment, limiting genuine freedom of choice.
Intellectual choice and practical choice. These two types of decisions help us understand how people think and act when faced with moral or real life situations. Let's start with intellectual choice. An intellectual choice is a decision based on what is morally right, logically sound, and ethically correct. It's guided by reason and principles rather than emotions or personal benefit. For example, choosing to study philosophy because it deepens your understanding of life, even if it doesn't guarantee a high paying job. Another example is deciding to forgive someone because it's the ethical thing to do, even if you still feel hurt. In short, intellectual choice are ideal or theoretical. They focus on what should be done according to moral values. Now let's move on to practical choice. A practical choice is based on what works best in a given situation, what is useful, efficient, or beneficial at the moment. It's usually influenced by emotions, pressure, or real life needs. For instance, choosing to take a nursing course because it offers stable employment and good pay, or deciding not to confront someone about a problem to avoid conflict and protect your relationship. Sometimes, our practical choices don't match our intellectual ones because real life situation involves stress, urgency, and emotions. To sum up, intellectual choices focus on what is morally and rationally right, while practical choices focus on what's realistic and effective. Both types of choices are important. Intellectual choices guide us with principles, and practical choices help us adapt to real situations. The key is to find balance between what is right and what is necessary. Thank you for listening.